Most women, once they reach their 60s, are often told to accept a less vibrant body, a less active life, and a less passionate experience of pleasure. But here's something you may not have heard. The very act of self-love, something you might have relied on for solace, relaxation, or closeness, could now be quietly harming your hormones, your bladder, even your heart. And the most frustrating part is, nobody warned you. Not your family doctor, not your loved ones, not the books or magazines, and certainly not the generation you grew up in. I'm Dr. Anya Sharma. I've spent over 3 decades as a urologist, guiding women and men to rediscover confidence, intimacy, and well-being after 60. And today, I want to speak with you, woman to woman, sharing the honest truth that's been missing from discussions about your body for too long. Because while many suggest self-pleasure is healthy at any age, few explain to older women what actually shifts after menopause. How the pelvic floor loses strength, how declining estrogen impacts your tissues, how overstimulation can lead to emotional exhaustion, nerve sensitivity, or sleep issues. But there's reason for hope. Over the next few minutes, I'll share 5 secrets about self-love that every woman over 60 should know. Secrets that can protect your body, renew your confidence, and help you reconnect in a way that brings serenity, not discomfort. And by the end of our time together, I'll reveal the soothing, hormone-friendly method I recommend to my own patients, so you can find comfort, safety, and even joy. First, if you haven't already, I encourage you to subscribe and tap the notification bell, so you never miss another candid, age-appropriate health conversation designed specifically for women like you. And if this topic resonates with you, please type 1 in the comments. If not, type Zorro, so I know how to best support you on your personal path. Let's begin with the first truth, one that most women are never told. After 60, your hormones react very differently to stimulation than they did in past decades. And continuing habits from your younger years without understanding these changes can quietly affect everything from your bladder to your emotional well-being. Here's what you should be aware of. Secret number 1. After 60, your hormones respond very differently to stimulation than they did at 30. When you were younger, in your 20s or 30s, arousal came easily. Your body responded predictably. Warmth, desire, release. Estrogen flowed freely. Your tissues were supple. Blood circulated smoothly. And pleasure led to satisfaction without much consequence. But after 60, that's often no longer the case. And the reality is, many women don't fully grasp how dramatically their hormonal situation has changed. I wish someone had informed you sooner. In my practice, I see this every week. Women come to me with quiet concerns, dryness, discomfort, leaking, numbness, or even a subtle sense of disappointment after self-pleasure. They blame themselves, or their age, or assume something is wrong. But what's actually happening is that your body is operating under a completely new set of guidelines, and you haven't been given the instruction manual. After menopause, estrogen levels can plummet by over 80%. That drop transforms everything. The vaginal walls thin. Tissues lose their elasticity. Blood flow to the clitoris and pelvic area slows significantly. The nerves that once transmitted pleasure signals now require more consideration, more time, and more support. But instead, many women continue to stimulate themselves in the same way they did at 30, quickly, vigorously, without lubrication, and without awareness. And here's the hidden cost you may be paying. Tiny tears in the vaginal lining that lead to inflammation, silent infections that go unnoticed, reduced sensitivity due to overstimulation, and a hormonal dip that leaves you more exhausted than fulfilled. I've seen patients with chronic urinary urgency that turned out to be caused by self-inflicted irritation. Others developed long-term sensitivity loss because nobody cautioned them that repeated friction on tissues deprived of estrogen can lead to nerve fatigue, not in days, but over months and years. This isn't about feeling ashamed. It's about taking care of yourself. Because when your body changes, your approach to pleasure must adapt, too. If you ignore this shift, you don't just lose enjoyment. You lose a sense of safety. You lose energy, and you gradually disconnect from your own body. And that disconnection becomes its own form of sorrow, a quiet ache that lingers just beneath the surface. I remember one patient, Clara, who told me, "I just wanted to feel something again. But every time I tried, it felt more like I was hurting myself than helping." Clara wasn't broken, she was simply lacking information. After we adjusted her approach, incorporating hormone-friendly lubrication, slowing her pace, and using methods that supported her new physiology instead of working against it, her entire relationship with her body transformed. It became gentler, safer, and even more satisfying than she had imagined. So, if you've ever felt depleted, sore, or strangely disconnected after a moment of intimacy with yourself, please know that your body is trying to communicate with you, and it's asking for a different kind of care. Because what's happening beneath the surface may not be visible, but it can cause lasting problems if you continue to ignore it. And here's the real surprise. It's not just your hormones that are changing. There's another system within you that's even more sensitive. And most women don't realize it's being affected until the symptoms start interfering with their daily lives. Let's discuss that next. Secret number 2. Your pelvic floor is weaker, and it affects more than you think. If I could sit down with you in my office and have one completely honest conversation, it would be this one, because it truly saddens me to see how many older women suffer in silence, never realizing that something as simple and natural as self-love might be slowly weakening the very muscles that support their bodies. Your pelvic floor isn't just a group of muscles. It's the foundation of your core as a woman. It supports your bladder, your uterus, your bowels. It's involved in every breath, every step, every intimate moment. And after 60, particularly post-menopause, that once strong muscular sling becomes more vulnerable. Years of gravity, childbirth, hormonal changes, even holding in stress, all contribute to weakening its tone. But here's where things can take a turn for the worse. When you engage in self-pleasure, especially lying on your back, tensing your abdomen, or rushing to climax, those actions create pressure, downward pressure, straining pressure. And if your pelvic floor is already weakened, that strain can be damaging. What starts as a little urine leakage when you laugh can develop into nighttime urgency. What begins as a feeling of heaviness can progress to pelvic organ prolapse. What once felt empowering now feels unsettling, even frightening. I had a patient, Linda, 69, who came in feeling embarrassed, saying, "Every time I'm finished, I feel like something is dropping inside me." She thought it was all in her head. It wasn't. An ultrasound revealed that her bladder had started to shift position. No cancer, no infection, just years of unnoticed pressure and pelvic strain. And when we looked back, one of the major factors was how she'd been stimulating herself for over a decade, unintentionally bearing down each time, unaware of the damage accumulating within. This is the price many women unknowingly pay: loss of bladder control, chronic pelvic pain, avoidance of intimacy, and sometimes even the emotional burden of no longer trusting their own bodies. Because when the pelvic floor weakens, it doesn't just affect physical health, it diminishes your confidence. Suddenly, long walks feel risky, intimacy feels embarrassing, and every cough or sneeze becomes a moment of worry. But it doesn't have to be this way. There are ways to support your pelvic floor. There are breathing exercises, posture adjustments, and pleasure techniques that protect instead of creating pressure. But you must first recognize that this part of your body is precious and deserves care, not strain. And what if I told you that how you touch yourself isn't just affecting your muscles, but your very nerves? Because the next secret is something that even I didn't fully appreciate until I witnessed the long-term effects in my own patients. Effects that start on the surface but go much, much deeper. Let's explore that next. Secret number 3. The type of touch matters more than you realize. When I talk with women over 60 about their intimate practices, there's often a moment of hesitation in their voice, as if they're unsure whether what they're doing is even okay anymore. And truthfully, many aren't doing anything inherently wrong, but they're doing things that their bodies can no longer safely handle. One of the most common mistakes I see is this: women using the same type of touch they relied on decades ago. Quick, repetitive, focused on one small area, often without any lubrication, and with little awareness of what their skin, nerves, or circulation can actually tolerate. Now, I understand why. It's the only method they were ever taught. Or perhaps they were never taught anything at all. But here's what's crucial to understand. After menopause, your skin becomes thinner. Your nerve endings become more sensitive, and the tissues around the clitoris and vaginal opening lose their natural cushioning. That means every touch, every vibration, every bit of friction has a much greater impact. In your younger years, the tissue could easily recover. Now it tears more easily. It bruises without you realizing it. It becomes desensitized when exposed to too much force. And over time, something unfortunate begins to happen. The areas you once felt most alive in begin to go numb. Not because you're aging, but because you're overstimulating them without realizing it. I remember one patient, Sandra, 65. She had started using a small handheld vibrator after her husband passed away. At first, it brought her comfort, but within a year, she noticed she couldn't feel much anymore. Not just emotionally, physically. Touch didn't register the same way. She assumed it was simply due to age. But in reality, her repeated high-frequency stimulation had overloaded the nerves in her clitoris. What she needed wasn't more intensity. It was a completely different approach. This is the hidden cost. Long-term overstimulation can diminish nerve response. It can lead to numbness that feels permanent. It can trigger low-level inflammation that causes burning, irritation, or even pain during urination. And worst of all, it can lead to a deep emotional disconnection from your body, from your memories of pleasure, from your very identity as a sensual being. But there is another way, a gentler, wiser way to explore your body with care, patience, and full presence, one that doesn't just protect your nerves, but helps reawaken them. Because intimacy after 60 should feel safe and sacred, not rushed and risky. And that leads me to something most women never associate with self-pleasure, but should. It's not about your body this time. It's about your mind. Because what happens in your nervous system after climax might be affecting your emotions more than you realize. Let's talk about that next. Secret number 4, the brain-body disconnect that nobody talks about. There's something deeply personal I want to share, something I've only come to fully understand after years of listening to women speak honestly behind closed doors. It's the silence that follows a moment of self-pleasure. Not always physical silence, but emotional silence, that quiet, heavy feeling that creeps in once the act is over. Some describe it as emptiness. Others say it feels like something is missing. And the truth is, they're not imagining it. After 60, your brain and body no longer respond to stimulation the way they once did. The chemicals that once enveloped you in warmth, oxytocin, serotonin, dopamine, don't flood your system as readily. And when stimulation becomes mechanical, rushed, or purely physical, your nervous system starts to notice. It begins to register these moments not as connection but as disconnection. You may feel numb. You may feel agitated. You may even feel strangely hollow afterward, wondering why something that used to bring you peace now seems to leave you restless or uneasy. I've had women in their 60s and 70s admit to feeling emotionally flat after climax, as if the experience drained them instead of revitalized them. And it's not because they're broken. It's because they're doing something deeply intimate without the emotional connection to support it. Your brain craves safety, emotional grounding, and intention. In these moments, when those are missing, it struggles to make sense of the act. And over time, something more concerning begins to unfold. The experience of pleasure becomes neurologically rewired as a transaction, not a relationship. The very thing that was meant to soothe you begins to condition your brain to feel detached or worse, empty. This is the hidden cost you pay, a widening gap between your mind and your body, one that can lead to subtle emotional dysregulation. You may notice it in your sleep. You may notice it in your mood. Or you may simply stop seeking intimacy altogether. Not because you've lost the desire, but because every time you try, you feel more alone. I once had a patient, Marie, 71, who told me through tears, "I just wanted to feel comforted, but I felt more distant from myself afterward than before." That's when I knew we have to stop treating self-love as just physical. Especially for older women, it must be emotional, mindful, and rooted in connection. Otherwise, we risk turning a healing act into one that quietly chips away at our inner peace. But what if the effects of this disconnection go beyond just emotion? What if they're actually disrupting your sleep, your hormones, and the restorative rhythm your body needs to age with grace? Because the final secret reveals a consequence most women never expect. Yet, it touches every hour of their night. Let's talk about that next. Secret number 5, emotional numbness, sleep disturbance, and the loss of afterglow. There's something sacred about the moment after intimacy. That soft exhale, that quiet peace that settles over the body like a warm blanket. It's what many women describe as the afterglow, a gentle stillness that helps you fall asleep, ease tension, and feel at home in your skin. But for many women over 60, that glow is no longer there. And instead, what follows self-pleasure is something far more troubling. Restlessness, sadness, or an unshakable heaviness that lingers into the night. You might notice you don't sleep as soundly after you touch yourself. Maybe you wake up more during the night, your mind buzzing or your heart racing slightly. Maybe you lie there afterward and wonder why you feel unsettled when you were only trying to comfort yourself. This is not your imagination. It's your nervous system telling you that something's off. After 60, your body's hormonal response to climax is different. Your natural melatonin levels are lower. Your adrenal system is more sensitive. And if your self-pleasure is rushed, aggressive, or emotionally disconnected, it can actually spike cortisol, the very hormone that keeps your body alert and on edge. So instead of winding down, your system may be firing up at the exact moment it should be calming down. And that's just the beginning. Many women I see report feeling emotionally flat the next day. They can't explain it. They just feel dull, unfocused, or mildly irritable. And the truth is, this may be the cost of overstimulating a nervous system that's quietly asking for rest, not release. The old way no longer works. In fact, it may be working against you. This is the hidden price that often goes unnoticed, a slow erosion of your sleep quality, your emotional balance, and your ability to recover from stress. It may not feel dramatic in the moment, but over time, night after night, the effect is cumulative. Your body begins to associate self-pleasure not with peace and restoration, but with agitation and fatigue. I had a patient, Eleanor, 68, who said something I'll never forget. She said, "I thought I was comforting myself before bed, but every time I did it, I felt like I was peeling away another layer of myself instead of rebuilding one." It was heartbreaking, but it was also a turning point, because once she shifted her approach, slowing down, reconnecting emotionally, focusing on presence rather than pressure, her sleep improved, her mood stabilized, and the afterglow returned. So, if you've ever felt more tired, more anxious, or more numb after touching yourself, please listen to what your body is trying to tell you. The solution isn't to stop. It's to change how you approach this intimate act. Because when done right, it can still be one of the most healing rituals in your life. And in just a moment, I'll share the exact method I teach my own patients. A gentle, hormone-safe practice that helps restore intimacy, balance, and connection after 60. It's something every older woman deserves to know. Don't miss it. If no one has ever shared these insights with you, it's not your fault. The reality is, most older women were never taught how their bodies transform after 60, how hormones decline, how the pelvic floor weakens, how nerves become more sensitive, how the brain yearns for deeper connection, and how pleasure without intention can quietly disrupt sleep and emotional well-being. But now you're informed, and that knowledge empowers you. You deserve pleasure that doesn't come with hidden consequences. You deserve connection without confusion. And you deserve to feel at home in your body safely, confidently, and fully. As your doctor, but also as someone who's listened to hundreds of women just like you, I want you to know it's not too late to reconnect. Not too late to change how you relate to yourself, and not too late to rediscover that soft glow of calm and comfort you may have thought was gone for good. The old ways may no longer serve you, but something better can begin today, something wiser, gentler, and far more beautiful. You're not broken, you're evolving. Let's help your pleasure evolve with you.